He says, hey, warm-up run. Delpesh's riding. I said, what are you talking about, Delpesh? I thought, Nathan, I said, now what? He said, no, and amazingly, the very next day after you spoke to me, he said, Anthony walked past looking to ride some work. I said, get on this little guy. And he came back and said, hey, what do you mean? Training run. This horse is ready to win.
Welcome to another edition of Horses to Follow. We finally got rid of Len Funa, so I'm flying solo today. With me I have a very distinguished guest in Rob Haswell. Rob, owner, ex-mayor of Pietermaritzburg, historian, geographer, boxer, rugby player. You've done it all.
Yeah, I've taken punishment in all of them though. My old man had racing colours. They were blue and brown. And at the end, when he turned up racing, he said that he said my colours should have been black and blue.
You got pummeled.
It was about right, yeah.
Rob, you've been in racing a long time and you own a few horses. How did it all start?
I think it started at birth. I was born, believe it or not, at the Turf Club nursing home, which looks onto Turfentine Racecourse.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I was literally born across the road from there. My old man had been involved in greyhound racing, and that was abolished in 48. So we had, apart from greyhounds on the small holding, we had horses. I was the youngest in the family. All of my siblings all got horses at the age of 4 or 5. When I got to that age, as I said, the government abolished greyhound racing. So I was the only one in the family who never owned a horse. So I can trace it way back in my family history that I always thought one day I'll own a horse. Yeah.
And Rob, you've been around the world. I mean, America's like a second home to you. You told me a story that you nearly became a racehorse trainer in America.
Yeah, look, I did a lot of graduate studies in America. And at Southern Illinois University, in order to keep my scholarship, I had to take courses every semester. After 2 years, I'd done every geography, every economics course under the sun, but I still needed to have hours. So I signed up for Animal Science 101 because it was horses. And so I walked in there as a graduate student, and there were all these good old boys from the South in their boots and Stetson hats and so on, looking at who's this funny looking guy, bald, doesn't speak English, and so on. And yeah, it was a good course. I learned you do basic conformation. We went on a tour of the bluegrass country and so on. And I managed to pass the course. I think I was the only one who could use a calculator. The other guys were wonderful when it came to dealing with horses, but the minute you had to work out a food ration, no, that was it. Now, once you had that course under your belt, you were eligible to get a trainer's license. In fact, I got one, but they said you've now got to be active or you'll lose it. So you've got to have horses in training.
But tricky for a South African to find horses in America.
Well, that was it. Although I came very close. I spent about 2 weeks in a barn in Florida, and I realized after a couple of weeks of doing what you got to do every morning,
shoveling from the bottom.
I thought, no, I think I'm more suited to academic life.
And while you were in Florida, you stopped off at Agalo. There was you said you ran into a South African there.
Yeah, there happened to be a South African, Yanni, I forget his surname now. And Jollify was one of the stallions. So, of course, he was very keen to meet a South African, but wanted to know inch by inch, stride by stride, Jollify, Sea Cottage
in the July. Yeah.
Was it just the weight, or was it a genuine?
Yeah.
And so on. That was quite interesting too, because Jollify was very unruly and so on. And we went down to see him, and he was jumping around a bit. And one of the jockeys came up and said, very reluctant to get up on the horse. And I just started speaking loudly in Afrikaans and threw in the occasional Zulu word. And Jollify just seemed to, it sounds ridiculous, he calmed down immediately. The guy said, you get up on him. I said, no. I'm just a horse talker, not a horse rider.
Yeah, it's weird that horses actually enjoy that sort of thing. I remember John Slade telling me the story of Black Munalush. When he arrived here, he was a bit of a handful. And his Xhosa groom, he played music to him, but he said he only listened to Xhosa. He put the English on the radio, he wasn't so happy anymore.
No, I think it's very important too. I watched that a number of watch work riding in America. The jockeys, I thought, were very vocal, and you think they're talking about everything else, they're not concentrating on what they're going to do, but it's actually just to calm the horses down. So a lot of the times I find, jocks will take a horse down quietly to the start, and then you don't realize the horse is thinking, what is this? It's almost like, am I getting married, or what is that? This is serious now. Whereas you need to talk loudly and so on, and then the horse is distracted. Part of his routine is to do that, as opposed to suddenly change and everything's dead quiet. But
also when you're in America, you saw those wild horses. West Virginia? Where was it?
Yeah, no, it's on the East Coast. It's a wonderful story. A couple of small islands off the East Coast of America. The islands themselves are fantastic because there's still some African dialects spoken.
Okay.
On the Gullah Islands, for instance, there's slaves who survived there. The one particular, in Assateague, those islands, they're horses, they're actually ponies, they're piebald ponies. And of course the great story, like all wild horses, you go around the world, wild horses, and there's always a logical historical fact which has been blown into a nice story. The story there was that those ponies survived a shipwreck of a Spanish ship way back when. On closer inspection, guys have realized now they're more local in origin, but they live on these islands and they're protected. And you don't always see them. It's quite a wooded island and so on. We camped there one night. I had two of my sons then, I think were 10 and 8 or something. And so we were sleeping bags under the stars, and I could hear them mumbling. This is another one of the wild man's escapades. Where we're going to see horses on this island. And in the morning when I woke up, we were on a little mound when the sea was just over and I could hear that there was, and I thought, man, those are horses just thrashing around in the surf. So I said to the guys, hey guys, a leopard crawl up to the top, and so it was incredible. We crawled up to the top, and lo and behold, there were 7 or 8 of these ponies having a great time in the surf. Quite surprised to see us. They probably thought we were shipwrecked rather than them, and so on. Yeah, so we spent some time. I've also seen the wild horses in the Namib in Namibia, which are now under severe threat, and then also at Kleinmond, outside Hermanus.
Yeah, I don't think too many people know about Kleinmond.
No, that's a difficult one. There's the Botrefeer Lagoon. You can often see those horses from the road that leads into the town, but when you get onto the beach again, there's a big sand dune, and you've got to make your way. There are some paths that I think the horses use to get to the beach, but they're not. It's not visitor friendly, put it that way.
Yeah.
I saw the horses and then couldn't find my way back, which was quite embarrassing for me. My wife had to go to the lifesavers and say, "Listen,
the husband's lost it."
Yeah, and they said, "Well, what is it? What job does he do?" She said, "Well, he's a geographer." They said, "What do you mean he can't find his way out?" You see? And I was going upstream on the river when I was supposed to be going downstream, so I was well and
truly lost.
Yeah.
Rob, now you've only really got into racehorse ownership fairly recently.
Yeah.
And those colours were of yours of orange and what is it, orange and?
Yeah, it's a flaming orange and
red.
That
your granddaughter. Designed them.
Yeah. There was a fateful thing because I've got grandchildren in America and here, and after my wife died, I guess I was looking for something to focus on, and so on. And you actually introduced me to Duncan Howes. Duncan said, well, there's a chestnut, and phoned me a couple of weeks later, and I went to, and in the meanwhile I'd mentioned to my family that I was going to go and look at a horse, and one of my granddaughters from America said, oh, she'd been thinking about this, and it was a fiery chestnut called Firebolt. Sent me this thing, and I remember driving here with Des McDonald, and he's showing them this, and we were just smiling. Went down to Duncan's place. They pull out this horse and blow me down. It's a fiery looking chestnut, you see. So I said, well, that's Firebolt, you see. So that's it. And then my other daughter, Tia, who lived just down the road from here, she said, well, it's not fair that Emma gets to name the horse. What can I do? So I said, well, so she produced this idea of having flaming flames. And of course, the Jockey Club weren't too excited about having actual flames. So the best I could do was come up with two colors and chevrons.
Flaming orange and red,
Yes, yeah.
No, I remember Firebolt didn't actually do much, did he? Yeah.
No, it was strange. He used to work well here at Ashburton. He used to come out religiously, and people would look at him and say, well, you can't believe he's still a maiden. I said, believe me, he is.
Bloody morning glory. I hate those horses.
Yeah, but that went from the sublime to the ridiculous. So I thought, okay, I've had a horse that didn't work out. That's the luck of the draw. Then Anton Proctor introduced me to Nathan Kotzen, and Anton invited me up to his breeding farm up near Sedora.
Yeah, you and Anton were quite close.
Yeah. And he was always talking to me, listen, wait a bit. You had a lemon, but that's not... and of course, at that time, he was very keen on Toreador,
right,
and so on. And so I actually saw Cumulus as a very young horse, probably 4 or 5 months old, and so on. And eventually he came to me and said, look, I want to show you this horse. He said, it's a small horse, but don't get put off. Everybody goes crazy about size and stride. He said, that's important. He said, but this looks like a gutsy little horse to me. So I bought Cumulus. Anton, and I was reluctant,
Yeah.
And he said, look, I'll give you the horse. I said, what do you mean you give me the horse? He said, I'm giving you the horse. You don't have to pay me now. Wins its first race, you can pay me. Give me the first stake when it wins. So I thought, well, based on Firebolt, I've got nothing to lose. Anyway, then I was going on my sort of semi-annual visit to see my 2 sons who live in America. And I said to Nathan, listen, I'm going to be away for a couple of months. He said, no, that's fine. He said, I'll take it slowly. I'll get him ready to run for when you're back. I said, that's great. So I was up in Connecticut. My son works in New York City. And he phoned me excitedly. He says, Cumulus is running at Scottsville. I said, are you sure? He said, yes. I said, well, okay. So I phoned Nathan. He said, I was just going to give him a run. Don't worry. He said, we're just warming him up for when you get back. Nothing's changed. I said, that's fine. Next time I phoned him, he says, hey, warm-up run. Delpesh is riding. I said, what are you talking about, Delpesh? I phoned Nathan. I said, now what? He said, no, and amazingly, the very next day after you spoke to me, he said, Anthony walked past looking to ride some work. I said, get on this little guy. And he came back and said, hey, what do you mean? Training run. This horse is ready to win. So on the strength of that, we had a good bet on it in America, and he won. And that started something that I never actually saw Cumulus win. Twice I was in America, and once I was elsewhere in the country.
You won 3 races?
Won 3 races. His third and last race, my son it was this week, 3-4 years ago. For his 50th birthday, he invited some friends and myself to go to the US Masters golf tournament. So we were there, so Cumulus was going to run again at Scottsville. And there's a very strict rule that no cell phones are allowed on the course. So as you get to the gates, there's sort of lockers that you can put your valuables in. And of course, we'd worked it out that we'd watch the race streaming on my son's phone. Then of course it didn't. So I said, well, we can listen to the commentary. So it was fairly early in American time, probably about 10:30 or something. So we rushed off the course now to go out, duck out and listen to Cumulus's race. We were staying at a B&B. There were about 20 people. And of course, they all knew, wait a bit, this guy from South Africa's got a horse running. I said, is it going to win? I said, well, it's got the top jockey, so who the hell knows? So we come out to listen. My son turns his phone on, and one of the security guy comes up and says, no cell phones. We said, but hey, we're off the course. He said, you've got to be off the property.
Oh, geez.
Okay, that was on this main avenue, 400-500 meters walk.
Yeah.
So we were walking. So we got onto the commentary, and Craig Peters, they're going in. I said, no stuff. So we ducked around the little bush and said, well, nobody can see us here. And then, of course, the horse wins. Cumulus wins it. So now we've switched the thing off. We start almost jogging to get back to Mr. Golf. And Craig Peters says, wait a minute, race review. So what the hell is race review, you see? Anyway, well, so now we're anxious to get back on. We want to miss the golf because Louis Oosthuizen was about to tee off. To-ing and froing, what the hell? So eventually I said, look, my son Nicholas is on the course. Let's phone him. So I phoned Nicholas, who knows next to nothing about race. I said, Nicholas. He says, I got the exacta, but they won't pay me out. I said, they won't pay me out because it's not official yet. What do you mean? I said, there's a race review. He said, what's that? I said, they're reviewing the race. Something happened in the race. No, he says, there was one. I said, no. I said, but listen now. I said, race review is one thing. Objection is more. Is there an objection? He said, no, but I said, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I said, did you hear a loud hooter? No, he says, definitely. I said, where is Des? He says, I don't know, he's gone upstairs. I said, well, find somebody. They put another guy on. I said, now listen, have you heard a loud hooter? He said, yeah, I think so. I said, no. I said, you not think so. This is a loud hooter. And then they announced there's been an objection.
Okay.
The second place horse against the first. Yeah, he says there was something like that time. So of course, no, we had a big bet on the horse. They were like that, yeah. So it took quite a while, and eventually they came back and said, no further action. I said, thank you. So Cumulus, we've retired him now. He started getting sore and almost looking crippled after each race. So we figured, okay, he's done the yeoman service for us. So we're still looking for a home for him. We had a possibility that he'd be good at polo, but they gave him a try and said no. So if anybody's looking for a nice quiet horse, he's in Nathan's yard.
Oh, he's still there.
He's still there, yeah.
But you got quite a few horses with Nathan, eh? Well,
yeah,
3, 4.
I lost count at one stage.
We were calling you Rob McToom at one stage.
Yeah, well, we've retired Cumulus. Master Keys, of course, has been an absolute trooper.
Now she runs on Sunday.
Yeah. Her first 10 runs were 5 wins, 5 places, so I was spoilt. I had a golden period where Cumulus won, Master Keys won twice, and then just for the penny. So I think I had 8 winners in 6 weeks. And
I thought the game was easy.
Everybody said, man, this guy's lucky. And I said, well, it's a case of when the wheel turns, because I went through a dry spell as well. Yeah, Master Keys is running. Could well be her last race. We're in negotiations with breeding.
How's she bred, Rob?
She's a master of my fate. So we're looking at active war, actually.
Okay.
And if I've got anything to do with it, the horse will be called Master of War if it's a colt.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's probably her last race on Sunday. And I must say, on Tuesday morning, she looked a lot fresher than she has been the last couple of months. So.
Right. And Rob, you've raced sort of all over, mostly in America. You raced at Saratoga. You've been to Saratoga last year for your
I used to go to Saratoga. Saratoga is the oldest racecourse in America, and they race for 6 weeks a year.
It's a bit like their Royal Ascot type thing, yeah.
Which goes from, it's the last week in July and it ends on Labor Day, which is the first week in September. The town goes from 50,000 people, it's a small little university town, to 250,000. So all the big hoi polloi owners out of New York City go and spend at least
a month in Saratoga.
And they race. They'll have one day of the week off. I think it's a Tuesday now. So it's an incredible place. You get up, you go to the track to watch the horses working, and there'll be 3,000 or 4,000 people having breakfast.
Not like here.
Yeah.
There's no one there for breakfast.
And then they have outside, back of the stands, picnic areas, and people will put their blankets and cooler boxes down to book a spot. So, yeah, if you love horse racing, put that on your bucket list. Spend a couple of days.
It's a vibe. It's the vibe.
Yeah, and there's music concerts, and there's this and there's that. There's wonderful art, music, all sorts.
There's one race meeting that I really want to attend. It's the Birdsville Cup in Australia.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a town of about 40 people. When the 2-day meeting at Birdsville, I got a dirt track there.
Yeah.
They get like 5,000 people. They both come in. They're bringing Learjets and airplanes, and they have.
Yeah.
That's a sort of. It's
Yeah.
almost like a ritual. And I remember when I was in Australia, they had I can't remember the horse's name, Star or something, that won the race. The bloke didn't have a float, so he trotted it behind his bucky for about 250 kilometres. So when it got there, it was fit. And it won there.
Gave it a good warm up. Yeah.
Gave a good warm up. Yeah. And there's a tradition there at the Birdsville Hotel. You have your well, they call them tinnies.
Yeah.
And you finish it, you just squash it, and you chuck it on the ground. So by the end of 2 days, it's like it's almost like a
new
sheet
floor.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's,
I know. Look,
I'd like
I think.
to go.
I mean, a lot of these Australian courses, they're literally in the outback. My father was over there once, and the guy said, "Do you like racing, Reg?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, there's a small meeting out here, blah." He says, and they were driving from Sydney, and he thought, "Where are we going to? We can't possibly." And he said he got there, there were like 15,000 people in the middle of bongo, you know.
Yeah. I think just every town in Australia's got a racetrack. Wagga. I raced in Seymour. I raced at Cairns.
Okay.
And the bookmakers were just lined up.
Yeah.
They were betting on Melbourne and Sydney and Perth.
Yeah, I mean, Australia, the national pastime is betting on horses.
And I see their sales have taken off.
Yeah.
They've had probably the best sales I've ever had this past couple of months.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're lucky. They've got lots of race courses, lots of horses, and people that are passionate about the sport.
Yeah, I just it brings to my mind, I mean, everybody has concerned about the future of racing. Racing is not competing with other forms of gambling. And, it's crazy because, it's also, to me, it's axiomatic. We're now a country of approaching 60 million people. So whatever your product is, whether it's peanut butter, beer, rugby, horse racing, you've got to market to the full 60 million. If you're going to market to 4 or 5 million,
you're not going to make it.
You're not going to make it. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for racing to reach out. If you look at the betting on soccer, amongst African people, Indian people, it's huge. And we don't seem to really make an effort to involve those people. And it's an overused word, transformation. It's easy to talk about it, but one of the small initiatives I'm involved in is looking at the Jockey Academy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yes.
I wouldn't say half empty, but they've got room for more.
Yes.
And then the old Equine Centre of Excellence up at Summerhill, which is also not full. So we've been working on a scheme with both of them to say, why don't we merge, and let's actually have it, and let's make sure that the thoroughbred racing and the so-called rural racing start producing people of equal caliber and so on. And I'll tell you something, we'll get a whole generation of women jockeys, and I hope I don't have to emphasize that the Holly Doyles and now, of course, Rachel are just showing us that
it can be done.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I think there's huge opportunities to grow racing in amongst all communities.
Yeah, I think
we don't seem to be. We seem to be, I don't know, reluctant to market it. I don't know why.
Yeah, because I was thinking there's huge opportunity. I mean, in the old days, they used to race at Tata and Cockstadt and all over the place. And was the rural blokes too, but it was also that the trainers, that used to take their horses there. I remember Anton Proctor telling me a story about how he won a race at Mtata.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely opportunity.
Nathan Kotson used to ride at the rural races as well, and he said, "Hey, when you're on a favourite there, you're on a favourite." You know what I mean?
Well, Richmond had a that was very popular.
Yeah. The old polo grounds.
Doug Campbell, I know Julie Griff. What's her name now? Guthrie.
Yeah.
She used to ride there. Doug used to ride there.
Yeah, I think there's huge. As I said, there's huge.
I think it's basically if you educate those sort of people, I don't know. I've got a chap from Joburg, an African bloke. He found my name on a website, and now I'm trying to coach him and tell him about it because he's dead keen on racing. But to try and explain all the nuances and it becomes difficult. And I think quite often it's such a complicated sport that people just say, I'm not interested.
Well, that is the problem.
Push the button at the casino,
when you come on, somebody hands you a card and says, read the form. Wait a bit.
Yeah.
Wait a bit, hang on. But also even that, because in sometimes the big wins in racing are numbers.
Yes.
So, you can... As you know, I frequent track and ball in Maritzburg, and there are guys who will walk in there. They don't know the horses' names, they don't know anything about form, and they look at the board, look at the favourite, the second favourite, and then take some other numbers with it and catch a trifecta, catch a quartet.
Yeah, no, I actually watched a bloke marching in there betting on Australian chariot racing. He didn't even know, he just said, okay, give me a trifecta, 6-5. He didn't even look at the board. Those are the diehards.
I mean, it's an old story. You only hear about it when they win. But there were, in the pre-COVID days, we had a room where, you'd start off, we'd get there, and depending on how well we did, people would start then coming. Anton would come, Andy Scheiser would pop in, and later on the guys finished 4 o'clock. Who's finished? Indian guys, African guys, and so on. And so it would go rolling until they'd close up at 7 and say, guys, you've got to go home now. And we'd say, wait a minute, it's so-and-so's round. You
may have been the mayor of Maritzburg. I think you're also the mayor of Track and Ball with Des McDonald as deputy. And Kenny.
Again, that Track and Ball, it's one of the few places where I can go in Maritzburg where people of different... it's the old story, about all men are equal on the turf and under it.
Yes.
It's one of the few places, because everywhere else you go, it's a white restaurant or it's a this or it's a that.
Yeah.
If you go there, over the course of 4 or 5 hours, you're going to meet people from all backgrounds.
It's a big cross-section.
And they're there because they enjoy gambling, they like horses, and they like the prospect that once somebody wins, it rounds on me.
Yeah.
And
Well, you must be coughing up a few.
That it easily becomes a party, out of nothing.
Yeah.
Or,
but it's also what I've tried to accentuate in racing. If you go with mates, and you turn it into an outing where you are just passionate about horses, you sit there and have a good time.
Yeah,
that's what racing's all about.
Yeah, look, I can tell you now. I mean. When just for the penny won first time, I must have had 10, 12.
Yes, I remember that.
So I've had tables of people, because to me that's part of it.
Yes.
And those are people who are not going to come on their own. But if they know that, they know some of the other people, and there's a reason to be there.
We had a couple of young blokes on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and they sort of said, we go there because we're mates and we're having fun.
Yeah.
They used to go to Clarewood and have their pie gravy and chips, and if they didn't win the first race, they didn't get pie gravy and chips, but they still had good fun.
All the gravy. Skip the chips.
Rob, you're not just a racing man, you've also been involved in rugby a lot. Are you chairman of the varsity club?
No, my son is. I was chairman there for 10 years. And my son Nicholas is there now. I've been involved in rugby since whatever.
You told me a great story about Cheslin Colby the other day, where
Yeah,
you're quite friendly with him.
Yeah. One of the guys who used to play up here, actually the first other than white guy that we got here on a rugby bursary was a guy called Craig Murray. He played South African schools, rugby and cricket. Played for SA schools. They toured England and Wales. Skonk was the manager. Skonk came back to me and said, Rob, this guy Craig Murray was the best player on the field when we played Wales. So I got him up here, a lovely player, a bit too small for big rugby, and so on and so forth. He then went into television journalism, SABC, and he phoned me one day and said, Ches and Colby's family, they don't know what to do. He's been made a big offer to go to Japan. This is probably 5, 6, maybe even 7 years ago. And I said, well, there's only one guy I know who can help you. So I got them on the phone and I just said, look, and they said, look, he's small. This is probably his only break because in South African rugby, nobody wants a small guy.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I said, that may be right. I said, but what little I've seen of him, I said, the guy is such a precocious talent that he'll force his way in. Whether they want to pick him or not, it's going to become... I said, in any case, stick with the sevens for now. There's going to be the Olympic Games. If he wins a gold medal, I said, whatever price they're offering you now, you could double it.
Double it, yeah.
And they said, well, they hadn't thought of it that way. I said, so anyway. So he went on, and then I got to speak to Cheslin one day. They sort of phoned me and said, he's got this big contract in France, and it's more money than he's ever dreamt of, and they wanted to thank me. And I said, well, I had nothing to do with your French contract. But no, he said, but the mere fact that I didn't go to Japan, it's whatever. Yeah. And then I said, no, has anybody written up your story, I wrote a piece once. I called it Cheslin Colby or Lakadung. And he told me the story that at high school he said, he played scrum half and da-da-da-da-da. And he said, it was a bit boring. And they said, we beat all the other teams, you see. I said, yeah. I said, I suppose you scored a lot of tries. He said, if the ball came out sideways in a scrum, he said, I just broke around the blind side. He said, I scored. He says, and if I passed to the flower, he said, he just ran through and scored. He said, so it got a bit boring. So I said, listen,
who was the
flower? He said, Wade van Niekerk. I said, okay. So the story rings true. And I think back, which raises another point. If you talk about rugby, we're professional, but because we pay people. But whether it's soccer anywhere else, you've got to have people scouting. So how is it possible that Cheslin Colby and Wade van Niekerk played together at high school and nobody saw them and said, listen, hey, he has 2 diamonds. So if you look at all the major clubs, soccer, Barcelona, Man United, the New York Yankees have 38 agents worldwide who do nothing else. So you see a guy come from Barbados and they think, what does he know about? He's never played baseball in his life, but we've seen him throw a ball. Or we've seen him hit a ball. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to identify young talent. We just people kind of coach themselves.
But it's the same with the Jockey Academy. I was just speaking to John Matahong, one of the riding masters here. He was here this morning. And he was saying he's just been to the Free State, on a talent hunt. And he said, the sad thing is that the first thing they say is, how much money can I earn? He said, if that's the attitude, you're never going to make it. He said, like, if what you put in is what you get out.
And certainly the first few years are nothing but hard work.
You're going to grovel.
You start at the bottom.
You're going to grovel.
The bottom is the
bottom. Story of the Appies complaining, we got school this morning, that we have to clean the stables this afternoon. They're not happy with that. But that's so. If anybody's out there who's knows someone who's with a bit of talent and is the right size, the Jockey Club's looking for you. The Jockey Academy is looking for you.
Well, same thing, as I said, we've got this little exercise going. If anybody's interested in sponsoring people, we want to bring people from all over KZN.
If you build up that sort of pool of not necessarily jockeys that are going to run on the professional circuit.
You've got a lot of young black guys in this province historically they would have all been herd boys with cattle.
Yes.
Now you get some who actually are looking after horses.
Yeah.
So they've grown up around horses, so they're naturals in that sense.
Yes.
So provided they don't get too big and too heavy, they've got 1 foot in the door.
But there's also opportunity. If you become a work rider, not just a groom, you can build up from there. And if you put the work in, you become an assistant. You can even become a trainer.
No, there's no question, because I mean, a horseman is a horseman. You get to know horses, you're relaxed around them, and so on and so forth. I think there's huge potential out there. It's just waiting to be.
You just got to find a way of tapping into it.
Yeah.
So that everybody benefits.
Yeah.
Rob, thanks very much for the chat.
It's been fun to be out here. I'm 77 this year, so we could have gone on a lot longer. I'm glad you didn't mention age or anything.
But unfortunately, I can't offer you breakfast because they haven't opened yet.
A late breakfast.
Breakfast.
No, I'm going down to Greyville, so I'll have a...
Oh, you've got to run it today.
I've got to run it today.
Just for the penny.
Just for the penny. It would be nice if somebody got the right. You spend a lot of time naming a horse. I wanted it, the mare's name is Just for Thee. So I wanted to be Just for Thee Penelope, after my late wife. And of course they said, no, that's too many letters.
18,
So it had to be Just for Thee Penny, but everybody reads it quickly and says, the penny.
Just for the penny,
The penny.
Yeah.
Look, if the horse wins, I'll forgive them. I don't care what they call the
horse. He won his first start very, very easily, and then he's just...
let me end on that note, that, I grew up in a very sporting family. My old man was a boxing promoter, whatever.
I used to write boxing for the Witness in
and
Pietermaritzburg.
I was involved in rugby, and I learned from my old man to be observant, watch carefully, see little things that other people don't. And I remember when I first saw Just for Thee, being born the same time as a half-brother to Cumulus, and of course everybody, including Anton, they were keen on the half-brother to Cumulus, and I looked and said, no, I like the other one. Anyway, cut a long story short, and then I watched this horse develop, and I thought, this is a strong horse, this is going to be a stayer, this is going to be a stamina horse. So we waited, and he's won his maiden over 16. We came from Stonelast in Australia.
I remember that race, yes.
And right around them, mowed them down, and everything I knew said, okay, this horse only gets going over 16. But of course there's so few races beyond 16, whatever. And that was June of 2019.
Yes, it's a couple
so
of years ago.
The second winning's been a long time coming, if you pardon the metaphor. But I've given up now, because having grown up in sports and predicting who's going to win and why, I get to racing and think, okay, this horse is flying at the finish over 16. If we put him over further or race him handier, it's got to win. And then you race him handier and he doesn't finish, and you're thinking now. So I've realized that I know next to nothing about getting horses right and what distance, which is very difficult, because we made our living out of knowing which boxer could take a punch and which couldn't, and what were the tactics. They could go horribly wrong and so on. Whereas racing, I've realized that you better be patient and got to rely on what the jockey said, what the trainer thinks, and just...
I think a lot of owners make the mistake of trying to second guess the trainer. I mean, they employ him to do a job, and then they tell him what to do.
Look, I must say, and when a trainer or a jockey says something to you that sounds obviously wrong.
Yes. Oh no, obviously.
This was too short. I mean, there's a horse running now that, for another guy, the horse won over 1,000. They then put it over 1,200, it stopped, it lost. They then put it over 14, it run stone last, and they said, no, he's looking for further. I was like, looking for further? He's looking for the stable, he's looking to go home on the float. So it's difficult. It's like in rugby. I remember seeing, let me end on this one, under 20 rugby trials day here on the Pietermaritzburg campus. The young guy from Zimbabwe, heavily tackled, going for the corner flag, limps off, broken leg. Doesn't play rugby that whole season. Second season, early on, Natal selectors send around every club. Give us guys who you think are potential to play for Natal.
Yeah.
So I put this guy down, and Puni Holm, who was convener of the selection, said, "Look, Rob, you know, you've got a good eye, we know that, but you're also terribly biased against, you're always putting far too many varsity guys in." I said, "Well, the whole varsity backline comes from Maritzburg varsity, what are you crying about?" He said, "Yeah, but now you've got a guy we can't find out, AJ Watson." I said, "No, he's a very fast winger." They said, "But what did he do last year?" I said, "No, he was injured, he broke his leg in the trials." He said, "Rob, so you mean he's never finished the game?" I said, "No, but I saw enough in the 10 minutes that he was on the field that I think he's a very good winger." He said, "No, man," he said, "if I tell the guys, no, he hasn't played a game yet," but he says, and of course, Tony Watson went on to break all the try scoring records.
Did he score was it against the Bulls?
No, he won the Currie Cup in 1990. But and as I said, that was my background. You know, you have to look at it. It's like in boxing now. Anthony Joshua, the big fight against Tyson Fury. Anthony Joshua, he looks $1 million. He's got everything, well spoken, blah blah blah. But he cannot take a punch. I've seen him rocked. He gets hit on the jaw and suddenly he's dancing.
Yeah.
And and if you're a heavyweight and you can't take a punch, doesn't matter what else you can do because you are going to get hit.
So you're going to back Tyson Fury?
Fury, I'll tell everybody here now, he's the biggest certainty I've seen since my horse this afternoon. On paper can't get beat, but of course races are not run on paper.
Rob, thanks very much.
Thank you.
I think I was going to think if we got the National Yearling sales start today. Everybody's holding thumbs that the prices hold up, but I thought minimum bid of 50 grand was a bit steep.
I'm holding out that Nathan doesn't buy 3 or 4, then come back and say, "Rob, you must look at this one."
And then we've got the World Sports Betting. They've got their race day at Hollywood Bet Scottsville on Sunday.
Yeah.
Some good racing there. You've got the Highland Night Cup.
Yeah, that's a nice.
And I watched the Gallop with Bayberry with
Do It Again.
Do It Again. Did you watch the Gallop?
I didn't see it. I heard it. We just got on courses. Yeah. And we'll finish it.
No, well, if Bayberry gallops like that, that'll win. I've told Shane Humby that'll win. And he said, "Well, that's the end of it if you tipped it." So. And then we got.
You get. That's another thing as an owner. You're so anxious. What are the guys in the know going to tell you? Yeah. If they ignore your horse, you feel badly done by. On the other hand, if they tip your horse, you lose the price, and then it still loses.
It's still your fault.
So that's another one of the learning in the game.
Yeah, no, I have a running battle with Humby. If I tip his horses, I get bloody bombed. And if they win, and I always pray that they win. Yeah, they got Rascallion running in the Sledgehammer, so it'll be interesting to see how that Cape Guinea's form holds up. I'm still not convinced it's all that watertight, but MJ Baylorfeld says I've sniffed glue, so that's fine. And then I'd like to see, she's a keeper, Gareth.
Yeah, that's the big. That's
badly out at the weights, but I think she's quite good.
Yeah, she's been impressive. Yeah.
So on that note, Rob, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Spending your time here. We appreciate it, and we'll hold thumbs.
Hold anything you
hold
like.
Anything
You can still reach.
And as Len Ferner will say, we will see you in the number 1 box. Hopefully.
Okay.